Just in case we have to call. Let's go ahead and get to the latest in college hoops now, where Auburn remains #1 in the AP poll for the 8th straight week. The Tigers received all 61 first-place votes following victories over Ole Miss and number 19 Kentucky. Now, with those wins, Auburn also locked up the SEC regular season title and the 1 seed in the SEC tournament. The Tigers back in action against number 22 Texas A&M in College Station on Tuesday. Elsewhere, Tennessee hanging on as the final 1 seed following their wild buzzer beater victory against Alabama. Tennessee is the top seed in the West Regional, which is in San Francisco. Auburn, Duke, and Houston are the other #1 seeds. The Vols close out the regular season at Ole Miss on Wednesday and against South Carolina on Saturday. Now tonight in college hoops, pressure is on for Wake Forest as they are desperate for a big win tonight against Duke. The Demon Deacons sitting with a 20-9 record and are 12-6 in conference play. They've taken a stumble as of lately, dropping 3 of their past 5, including games at home to Virginia and Florida State. Meanwhile, for Duke, despite having just 1 loss in conference play this season, the Blue Devils have yet to clinch the regular season title in the ACC. Here is a look at our own Jerry Palm's latest 1 seeds. There is a change at the top of the bracketology. Tennessee back as the #1 seed, as I mentioned, is 4th overall following its win against Alabama. Houston moves up a spot to 3rd overall, while the Crimson Tide fell off the top line and are now the top #2 seed. For more on all things college hoops, let's go ahead and welcome in our own Jerry Palm and Adam Finkelstein. Guys, great to see you. We begin with the fall of Alabama. We were watching those final seconds against Tennessee. The loss ends Alabama's hopes of an SEC championship game. But just how damaging is it to the Crimson Tide's #1 seed hopes, Jerry? I'll start with you, especially if they were to lose out.
Well, they're certainly not going to be a #1 if they lose out. They could drop all the way to a 3. It depends on the chasers, of course. And the best team on the 3 line to make that move would be Texas A&M, because they are also playing an SEC schedule. I'm not sure the other teams that are chasing have got enough on their schedule to make a run at a #2 seed, or at least Alabama's #2 seed. So if Texas A&M can get hot, maybe even win the SEC, Alabama goes in the tank, then you've got a scenario where maybe Alabama ends up as a 3 and A&M jumps back up to the 2 line. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what scenario exists that's going to definitely push Alabama off the 2 line.
And remember, Alabama still has some big opportunities when we talk about regular season matchups with Florida and then the regular season finale with Auburn, not to mention the SEC tournament. So Jerry would know better than me, but I still think they have an opportunity to play themselves up into that 1 seed. I think they are certainly viewed as an extremely legitimate national championship contender. You're talking about the fastest team in college basketball. They have a top 3 offense in the game, and their defense has consistently trended up and now ranks within the top 40. So those are all the metrics of a squad that's really poised to make some noise here, and they're going to have every opportunity, as I said, big games to close out the regular season, an SEC tournament that could be one of the best in conference history, and then Selection Sunday.
Well, let's go ahead and get elsewhere in the SEC. No one likes to lose, especially in this conference, and Arkansas is one of those teams that proved how devastating it can be when you don't take care of business. But despite that blowout loss to South Carolina, Razorbacks still in your field here, Jerry, and a lot of people are asking why.
Well, because they don't have anything historically negative about them. I mean, certainly there are negatives. They're below 500 against the top 3 quadrants. Those teams don't normally get in, but it's not unheard of. They've got some quality wins. They've got a lot of losses. None of them are really bad, but it's just a high number. So, you know, Arkansas has got a profile that says very much on the bubble, on the cut line. And because of the teams around them, they happen to be on the correct side of the cut line. But it could just as easily change while they're not even playing because of their position as basically the last 1 or 2 teams in.
And remember, this is a shorthanded squad that we're seeing from John Calipari. He lost Boogie Fland earlier in the winter. That freshman was the best first-year player on his roster. He was trending as a one-and-done. He had to do without him. And then lately he's had to do without Adu Thero, who came with him from Kentucky, one of a few different players who made that trip from Lexington. He, too, had played his way onto draft board. So I think this is very much a team under Calipari that if they get healthy, we know they're not going to get Boogie back for the NCAA tournament. But if they can get Thero back, quarterback, this is a team that will be much better than the one we've seen in the last week or so, and I think has a very legitimate chance to make some noise. And let's face it, the cinema of March Madness is just better when John Calipari is in it.
This is true. That's nothing but facts. Well, I want to go ahead and highlight a few other teams on the bubble here, and that's Xavier in North Carolina. Adam, why does Xavier catch your eye as a team to watch out for in March?
Well, they are one of those teams that I think if they get in, they've got a chance to really make some noise. They shoot the three-point shot very well. They've got an inside-out punch. Zach Fremantle, who was a freshman at Xavier in 2019-20, he's back as a super senior plus and is just a model of consistency, providing them with them some interior scoring. Then they shoot the three ball very well. This is a team right now that doesn't necessarily have a huge marquee win, or at least multiple marquee wins. But if they can go on a little bit of a run in the Big East tournament, solidify their spot in the field, I think they have all the makings of a team ready to do some damage. We know Sean Miller will have them ready to play. They can beat you in different spots. I think Dalen Swain is emerging. NBA scouts really like his potential. He can play multiple positions. This team plays fast, so they increase the number of possessions in a game. And I think the Musketeers are another team that, if they get in, should be viewed as someone who can potentially do a lot of damage in that first week of March.
So, Jerry, when we look at North Carolina now, which team from the ACC has a better chance to make the tournament, North Carolina or Wake Forest?
Oh, boy. I mean, they're both in trouble. North Carolina is 1-10 in quad one games. That would be the worst record for a team to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large against quad one opponents. I mean, that basically says we're not an NCAA tournament team. Well, the game that got left that is a quad one game is Duke. Well, if you beat Duke, I mean, that's a different story. But, you know, this team hasn't really shown that. And they've got a quad three loss as well at home to Stanford. So, you know, that they've got the one win, UCLA, and that's just not enough to push into the field. And because the ACC is so far down this year, the opportunities to resume build are really poor. So if they don't beat Duke on Saturday, they're going to have to make some serious noise in the ACC tournament, if not win it, to get to the NCAAs.
Yeah, you mentioned it, both North Carolina and Wake Forest in a very sticky situation. We can say it like that. Wake Forest, of course, faces Duke. Kansas taking on the best team in the Big 12 in Houston. Jerry, what are the bracketology implications of that matchup?
Yeah, well, Houston could fall off the top line if they lose to Kansas at home, because it's really competitive for 3, 4, and 5. In fact, I think if that happens, Houston will be 5 in the bracket tomorrow, and then Alabama will move back up. But for Kansas, you know, they're kind of sitting there as a 6 seed. They're 7-7 in their last 14 games. They're just kind of floundering down the stretch of the season, kind of like they did last year. They need a win to give them some juice, and a win like this could do it. But what we haven't seen is the Kansas team that looks capable of pulling this off on the road. Houston actually beat them at the Fog the first time they played. So I don't know, but Kansas, if they can get a win, this could be a real big boost for them, not just in the bracket. They'd move up one line in the bracket, but just some confidence going forward through the rest of the regular season in the Big 12 tournament.
Well, lastly here, Adam, everyone loves a Cinderella in March. You sent us your top 5 Cinderella teams. Who tops that list? Walk us through it.
Well, right now it's Drake. I think Ben McCollum is in his first year at that job, coming from D2 Northwest Missouri State, brought players with him, 27-3. They're really advanced offensively. All their metrics are really high, except for their turnover rate. They even force a lot of turnovers defensively. They defensive rebound. So I really like their chances. Yale, shout out James Jones. All this guy does is win. 23 straight years finishing in the top 4 of the Ivy League. This would be the third year out of 4 that he's been to the NCAA tournament. He has one of the most lethal shooters in the country, and John Pulakidis. I mean, this guy is just a southpaw shot maker extraordinaire. And then listen, McNeese State, Will Wade, a great mid-major backcourt. I like his ability to do damage here, and I think you're going to see him in the coaching carousel not long after. High Point and Allen Huss, another program. How about this? They are in the top 25 offensively in the country, and they play in the Big South. They never turn it over. They shoot it at all 3 levels. They get to the free throw line, they offensive rebound, and they have 4 different players who average between 14 and 15 points per game, so you really can't game plan for just one. Last but not least, Brian Dutcher and San Diego State. We've heard it all before. Elite defensively. That's how they got to the Final Four a couple years ago. They can do it again this year, at least make a run. They've got Miles Bird, who's on the NBA radar. And then how about Nick Boyd? If that name sounds familiar, it's because he too went to a Final Four. He just did it with Florida Atlantic. So those are some of my best mid-major sleepers, but we got some time to add to that list.
Yeah, we definitely do. Jerry, I'll give you the last word here as we put a bow on this segment. Who do you like off of Adam's Cinderella list?
Well, San Diego State has a chance to be an at-large team, and they're the only one on that list that does. But I saw Yale play Purdue earlier this year. Yale doesn't look like your typical Ivy League team. I mean, they look like a typical Ivy League champion in that they're smart and they play well and they've got athletes. And you mentioned I can't even pronounce his name, but their shooter. But they play smart. They play tough. They've got guys that can compete, maybe not with the Auburns of the world, but with a 4 seed, I think, or a 5 seed. Yale's got a chance to win a game like that in the NCAA tournament. And if they're in that part of the bracket, they could even win 2. They're going to be a really tough out if they get in.
All right, we will keep an eye out for those teams. Gentlemen, always great to see you. Thanks so much joining me here, CBS Sports HQ. Counting down the hours, the minutes until our selection Sunday show, March 16th. Coverage beginning live at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can watch on CBS or Paramount Plus. Let the madness commence.
Can't wait. When we come back, Mike McClure comes back, his best Steph Curry prop in Charlotte tonight. And we're double booked with guests as Pete Blackburn will join us on Ovi's chase to the Great One's all-time goals record.